Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, dear teachers. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Katia Valley, Schools and Exams Marketing Manager, and I'm talking to you from our office in São Paulo, Brazil. What about you? Where are you joining from? Please give us this information in the chat. Hi, Ana Helena. Welcome. Wow, Marcela from Lisbon. Wonderful. I have started recognizing some names, familiar names from old webinars. Rio de Janeiro present, Araras, Toledo in Paraná. So good to see so many people, so many teachers from all over Brazil and even in the world. Please do keep writing where you're joining from. So this week we have been running some webinars. So yesterday we had one on engagement and well-being. Today it's going to be about literacy. And tomorrow, digital tools in the pre-primary classroom. So on your screen, you see on the left a QR code that directs you to our recordings of past webinars. Please take a look. And on your right, you have a QR code that directs you to our future webinars. Next week, we are not having any webinars, but in the following week after Teachers' Day, we are having a full week of webinars. So please organize yourself to be with us. It's going to be awesome. Follow us on social media and you will get all our updates too. Before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. We are reserving 5 minutes at the end for questions and answers. Please use the Q&A tool. By the end of this presentation, in the chat box, you will see a link for a feedback form. And at the end of the feedback form, you get a link to download your certificate. This webinar is going to be recording, and the recording will be available soon in our Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel. And today, we are really happy to receive again Olha Madylus with us. Olha has taught in the UK, Greece, Hong Kong, and Venezuela. She's a freelance author, materials designer, consultant, and teacher trainer. She's based in London, and as well as working with Cambridge University Press and Assessment, does consultation, teacher training, and teacher trainer training, wow, for organizations such as the British Council and Ministers of Education worldwide. Welcome to today's webinar, Olha.
Thank you so much. Hello, bom dia, everybody. And greetings from a very autumnal London. It's so nice to be back. It's so nice to see so many people in the chat box. And I do hope you will join me in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll be very lonely. So it'd be very nice of you to join me there. Okay, so what am I talking about here today? Literacy. What do I mean by literacy? What am I talking about? This is basically my menu. And I'm talking about, when I'm talking about sowing the seeds, it's a lovely metaphor. It means, how do we start? Where do we begin with literacy, with reading and writing? And so what I want to do in this session is cover these things here that I have on this list and look at how we really prepare students when they're very little, when they're young, to be ready to read and write, and how do we start that journey? And I think that's a very important skill. But just to get us in the right mood for a session on young learners, we are going to play a game. Okay, I hope you're all ready to play a game. It works much better if I can see you and you're all with me, but we'll try this in this format anyway. I am going to show you a slide with lots of different objects on the slide, and I'm going to give you 27 seconds, 27 seconds to look at the slide, look at all the different pictures in the slide, and try and remember everything you see. Okay, you look at the pictures in a moment, 27 seconds. What can you remember? Try and fix all those things in your memory. Please do not write them down. Just look and remember. Are you ready? Are you steady? Let's go. Okay, in the chat box, what did you see? Can you write down what you saw in the chat box? First person gets, oh, Marcella's favorite thing obviously is ice cream. Woo, lots of things. The animals are coming out very clearly. Oh, very good. Animals and food. Wow. T-shirts. Yay. Oh, Marcella remembered the kite as well. There were a few pens, I think. Okay, have a look at the picture again. See, what did you miss? Is there anything you missed? Not many people wrote down the laptop. And not many people wrote down the lamp, but it's all good stuff. This is all great. So if you were doing this in class and your students were working, you ask them to remember the things in the picture, and then you say to them, work in pairs, write down what you remember. Why do you think this is a good activity for the English language classroom? Why do you think it's a good activity? What are the students having to do? Well, it's lots to do with memory. Oh, and focus, that keeping of attention. Oh my goodness, you're so good. Yeah. Practicing the vocabulary, writing as well, recapping, it's reviewing vocabulary. And it's fun and engaging, says Adriana, which makes an activity really, really good for this age group. So one thing is very important for young learners to be involved, to be active, not passive. They're not just sitting there going, oh, this is an interesting piece of language. But you have to get them doing something. And as Rosenda says, as a warm-up, particularly to review vocabulary from a previous session, lovely activity. And it's collaborative, and collaborative means it's not stressful, they can help each other, and if one person remembers one word, another person can remember another word. And it's meaningful. And this is very, very important as well, that they are looking at pictures of things and they're linking the picture, the meaning, to the word. So as vocabulary revision, it's very, very useful in that way. It's very effective. And as some of you said, they're writing as well. They're not just saying the words. If they weren't able to write them down, it'd be a very difficult activity. You get them speaking, but to help each other, this is a great way of getting them to practice their writing and practice their spelling as well, which is an important part of writing. And in many ways, it combines lots of aspects of literacy. The literacy is meaningful and it's to do with writing, and also they're going to be reading what they've written. But this is an activity that you would do maybe once they already had a few years of English, where they had lots of vocabulary and were able to read and write. So before we get to this stage, before we can do an activity like this, where do we begin? Where do we start on a literacy journey? Well, I'm going to share my ideas with you because I believe that literacy starts from the very first lesson, from when students are just surrounded by English. Obviously, it could be any language. When if it's Portuguese or Spanish, I've noticed somebody from Ecuador. If it's your mother tongue, you don't just start reading and writing. You're soaking up lots of language. You're listening. You're producing language. You don't just start reading and writing. There is the basic foundation is just that you're in that language, you're swimming in the language as much as possible. Unfortunately, in lots of primary classes, when children are learning English as a foreign or a second language, there isn't always lots of English. And I've heard lots of teachers say to me that they don't use English in a primary classroom, that they don't use it to give instructions because the children don't understand. And I think this is really sad because children do understand if you give them enough cues and you help them and you use your body, use your voice, you help them to understand because they need to be soaking in the language. And I think we can start introducing a lot of English in our classrooms in very nice ways. Some teachers say to me, well, I'm Brazilian, my students are Brazilian, we're in Brazil. It's very unnatural to be using English. The children know that it's a very strange thing to do, and they'll always go into Portuguese. They'll always want to speak Portuguese. So let's create a magical language environment. And I keep using the word magic here. And young children are really good at playing games. They understand games. So one thing that I say to students is, okay, here's the door of the classroom, and it's a magic door. When we come into the classroom, we're coming into England. And when we're in England, or you could say somewhere in America, that's up to you. When we come in here, we have to try and be English. We try and speak English. Or we might have times when we travel on a magic carpet. And when we get on the carpet, I buy a huge bed sheet from the market, nice and cheap and cheerful. I put it on the classroom floor and all the children squeeze onto it and we fly through the air, pretending, of course, to be in England. And when we're on the magic carpet, we're going to speak English as much as possible. Or something I've seen other teachers do is children wear a hat in their lesson and the hat is magical and it makes them be in an English speaking environment. And another little thing that I do, which goes with the door really, is at the beginning of term, at the beginning of the school year, I get the children to make passports. And they write their name, they draw a picture of themselves, and then they have to travel. They're traveling to this foreign country. So when they come to the door of the classroom, they have to show me their passport. And they start speaking in English and say, hello, I'm Anna. And they start pretending. And this is a really nice habit. And it's a game. As I said, children do understand that they are not in England and that nobody else is British around them, but they like to play games. Another way of introducing more English into your lesson, I don't know, actually going back to that one, have any of you tried any of these activities in your primary classrooms? Has anybody tried, or would you like to try some of these ideas? You don't have to tell me. Okay, another thing. Good, good. I'm glad somebody wants to try them. Introducing English is something we can use for classroom management. And rather than just say in your own language, listen to me, children, be quiet, use this language that we use, the classroom language, in English, because you will use it again and again, and the students will learn it. So I use things like this, where the T is for teacher. I will say, hocus pocus, and the children have to stop what they're doing and then everybody focus. Or here's another fun one. I say macaroni cheese, and the children go, ah, everybody freeze. And it's a great way of getting their attention. I like Marcella says this, her students don't even know that she speaks Portuguese. I know, because we pretend that we don't speak their language. But introducing these kind of things gives them this, even from the very beginning. My students would go home and say to their parents, we only use English, we only speak English. And the parents would tell me, and they said, that's amazing. And I say, yeah, because you create this atmosphere of English, and the children are really comfortable in that. And classroom language is so important, the language that we're using all the time, to say hello, to say, okay, sit down quietly, have you got your book? All these things are really important. So we can introduce things like when they play a game, whose turn is it? Well done, bravo. Lovely little bits of language that they'll be using again and again. And there are so many opportunities for injecting lots of English meaningfully. Think you can guess who's saying what. The pink bubbles of what students could be saying. Hello, can I have more paper? I finished. I always teach them thank you, please and thank you, because it's very British to use please and thank you. And I will say things to them as well. I like your new bag. Can somebody help me? And I use this language as much as possible. And this is really where we're laying the foundations of oracy, using language, using English to get things done. Not that English is a subject over there that we're studying, but it's something we're actually using. And this really feeds into the way that children think, that it's logical, it's sensible to use language in this way. Another fantastic way of bringing that language into the classroom, making sure that English is something that students are listening to, even if you're not very comfortable with giving the instructions, is stories. I love using story in the classroom, and we're so lucky because our course books are full of stories. But don't just stick to the course book. There are so many beautiful books. I have a whole collection of books that I use, and I use books that are written for English speaking students, and it's fine because there's so much that supports meaning, and the children get to listen to the stories. So stories, for one good thing about stories is that it's a social thing. You sit down, you do it together. It's a very social aspect of the classroom that I love. What else? Can you think of any other reasons why using story and story books with pictures in the classroom is a good idea? Why else is using stories a good idea? I'll start answering. I'm sure you'll join me. Yes, explore. Yes, creativity, imagination, lots of different subjects can be brought in. I don't know if you know the rainbow fish. This is all about sharing. making friends and sharing so you can bring values in. I think using stories is very stress-free. It's just so lovely to join in with a storytelling session, and you don't feel like you're learning. The children do not feel like they're in a classroom. It's just a beautiful, natural thing to do. But very importantly, as language teachers, our students need to hear the music of the language. They need to hear the rhythms, the sounds, the pronunciation of the language. And this is really important for them to get as much of this as possible. I had a class of pre-primary, they were 4 years old, in Greece, when I taught in Greece. And we had a story that I shared with them, which was called Funny Bones. I don't know if you know this, there's a BBC version of it about two skeletons with their skeleton dog. And it starts in a dark, dark town, in a dark, dark house down the dark, dark stairs, two skeletons lived. And the children would go, da 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 da. They would follow me with the rhythm and the music of the English. And slowly they would start saying the words, dark, dark. And they hear that music and they start repeating it and really joining in with the story. And this is a fantastic way to acquire language. And as Ghislaine said, it's the cross-cultural thing as well, of having stories from different cultures, which is so magical. But actually, the messages in stories are universal, which is why it's stress-free. It's a really lovely thing. And you've got the pictures to support meaning. Obviously, after you do a story, you can do lots of different things with them. They can act the stories, they can create their own characters, etc., as Rosenda says. So in our course books, we will see that story is an absolutely crucial element of the course book. And it starts with children looking at the pictures and hearing the story. So it's just listen, follow, hear those words, link the picture with the meaning. Remember the memory game? Picture, meaning, link. Then we move. So this, sorry, I was going to mention also, is a part of visual literacy. Before we can read letters and words, we read images. So that's part of the foundation, recognizing shapes. Knowing that the cat is in every picture, you recognize that that is a cat. That's visual literacy. Then as you move up the levels of a course book, we're adding words. But the words are still supported by listening to the stories. There's no great pressure here. You've got the pictures, you've got the listening, and then you can start reading with the listening. So the stories are pulling you along. There's this word called narrative thrust. You kind of pulled with the narrative, pulled with the story to follow. And you're motivated. You want to know what happens in the story, which is a very powerful thing. So when they're listening, whether it's a story, whatever you're doing in the classroom, there are lots of things that they can be doing. Remember what I said earlier on, being active is absolutely crucial for children, for all of us when we're learning. I can't learn anything if I'm just listening to somebody. I start falling asleep. So what can they do? They can listen and point. They can listen and follow the story. They can do actions. And the cat jumped and the cat was sleepy. Lovely things like that. They can tick if they see or they hear the word cat, they can tick a box. They can draw something. They can match things. They can circle something they hear. So here, this is before they don't have to write anything. They don't have to read anything. but they are actively engaged in that language, which is so important. So you see these kind of activities in the book. So we're going to listen and point. And this is fantastic for students because it's also developing their motor skills, and it's really interesting for them to do. And some of the things you're saying are really, really interesting. But before they're writing, this is before they're writing, is what I'm talking about, Rosendo. Later on, they can be doing this too. I absolutely agree with you. So at this stage, they haven't developed reading and writing skills. They're saying this is we're beginning to get them ready to read and write. So before you read and write, can you understand the words? Do you know that vocab? Do you know the vocabulary? So do you know what it means? Can you recognize it when you hear the words? Absolutely, pre-reading and writing. And again, we've got the same kind of activity, but we're introducing the words as well at the same time. So we're moving up a year, up a level. So it's a similar activity, listen and point, but you're actually labeling things. So the students can see the words, hear the words, interact with the words. You can't just introduce this immediately because they don't know this yet. And I just wanted to throw this activity here as an example as well, because I really love these kind of activities, which are critical thinking activities, where the students interact with the vocabulary, but they're having to work out what goes next. And they can do this pre-reading, but it's engaging their brain to recognize the shapes, to recognize patterns. And reading and writing is all about recognition, pattern development, shapes, how things link together. So this is all absolutely fabulous. When you think about the psychology of this, it's actually very complex. It looks like a simple activity, but actually children's brains are not simple, so we can't be too simple. And then they can listen and do, or they can listen and say. So lots of activities encourage them to repeat what they hear, to chant, to sing, to say yes or no. So you say, is this a fish? No. Okay, sorry, yes, yes, sorry. It's a bit late here. Yes, it's a fish, yes. So you get them to agree or disagree with what you show them. So I'm saying they're getting to really absorb the language as much as possible. And yes, we're dealing a lot at vocabulary level, but the vocabulary is so important because the grammar is meaningless without vocabulary. So here we go. Before they're having to read and write, you can listen to a song, you can point to things in the picture, and you can sing the song. And I love this instruction here because it's really about saying there's no pressure, which is super important as well. There's no pressure to write. Because as I'll talk in a minute about how writing is not easy. So an instruction here is watch the video, write or draw a school word. It's okay because it's all about understanding that word for the activity. So let's go back to chants and songs. And I said with stories, absolutely fabulous because students are developing that ability to understand and to really engage with the music of the language. And chants and songs are about the music of the language. This is one of my favorites, and I had to share this with you because I love it so much. And I'm going to ask you to join me. And I don't know if you are joining me, but go on, have a laugh. This is how it goes. I'm a big, big cat. I'm a little, little mouse. Big, little clap, clap, clap. I'm a big, big gorilla. I'm a little, little ant. big, little, clap, clap, clap. I'm a big, big shark. I'm a little, little frog. Big, little, clap, clap, clap. I'm just hoping I wasn't alone in doing that. But the children love doing these kind of activities, and I think they're so powerful. Gabriella, thank you. I wasn't alone. So, why do you think action chants and songs, particularly the actions, are so useful at the pre-literacy stage? I mean, I use them all the time. I even use them with teenagers, but why are they so useful at this level? I mean, one reason is it's a kind of drill. And drills in language teaching mean you repeat. You repeat things again and again, and it helps you to remember. But I think they're very motivating because it's achievable. And children, even if the children are going, I'm a baby, it's just they're starting to feel like they are able to do something with English. It's really building their confidence. Achievability is really important in learning, but so is fun. And they start remembering chunks, little bits of language. And this is where we've got the grammar as well. I'm a big, big gorilla. Not just big, big gorilla, but I'm a little girl. Actually, I'm a teacher. So they're learning this. Yes, the earworm, it gets stuck. Rhythm and music gets stuck in your head in a way that other language doesn't. So what happens with this particular chant, and I've been teaching it to children for over 30 years, is that you say to children, is actually I was going to say, is a horse a big animal or a little animal? And they'll go, it's a big, big horse. And it's that they remember that rhythm, they remember it, and they remember it meaningfully. I keep saying that word because it has to be meaningful. So yes, it's repetition, Anna, but it's meaningful repetition. We're not just going da 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 da. So we're through this kind of thing, we're focusing on pronunciation, and pronunciation here includes word stress. So that gorilla, not gorilla, gorilla. I'm a big, big gorilla. And that's really important to get this right when you're young. And that rhythm of language, the intonation of language, all of it. And again, they're practicing vocabulary meaningfully. With this particular one, I love doing it with flashcards. So we have the picture as well of the animal at the same time. But I'm a bit disorganized. I haven't got enough hands to do all this in front of the camera. And I say developing confidence. Oh, I keep repeating the same words, don't I? Confidence, laying the foundation. If you don't feel confident, you won't progress. You'll get stuck in this thing. Oh, I can't do it. It's too difficult. And in our primary classrooms, it's the perfect place to make children feel comfortable and confident and secure as well. And the other thing is they have to move. And moving is very, very good for all of us. I always feel like I've had a workout after I teach a primary class. So here we are with once we move up to reading and writing, we still do these activities. We listen, they act out the animals, they sing the song, and they have the words to read as well. So we're introducing the language at that reading and writing level too. And we have to give them reasons to speak, to talk in class, and give them lots of activities to do, like with puppets. There's one thing I do have here. Oops, sorry, I'm finding my little puppets. Making puppets from different things is really nice, so that they get to speak and talk to each other in English. And here's a little activity as well. Lots of class practice, getting them speaking using the language, not relying on the written word, but producing the language in spoken form. Now, we've talked about introducing language. So they hear a lot of language, they understand the language, they can produce the language. This is all pre-literacy. And there's more to pre-literacy, because for very young students, the whole physicality of literacy is difficult, because writing is really hard. Because for me, I mean, I don't have a giant pencil, but if the pencil, the pen is huge for them. Their fingers haven't developed yet to do that. And the combination of the way your brain gives you instructions to write has not developed. So that hand-eye coordination is something that takes time to develop. That's why children are so awkward. And in fact, it's much easier to teach children to type than to write by hand, because they only have to do this, whereas the writing is much more complex. So these are these fine motor skills that we need to try and get developed. So things like holding a pen, a pencil, using scissors, all this in the classroom is really useful. But it also expands that body control, expands into learning to sit still, to sit at the right angle at the table, to control yourself, because you're only 5 or 6 or maybe 7. You can't just be moving around all the time. You've got to be quiet and focused and paying attention, which is always so. Everybody freeze, macaroni cheese. So that focus on task, all these things link together before we can write. So just a few ideas. How do we develop these fine motor skills? There's lots of things we can do in the classroom. I have a little funny ball here, and it actually has a little face on it. You might not see that little face. There we go. And just to catch a ball, you have to have good hand-eye coordination. But I'm not just going to throw a ball in my classroom. I'm an English teacher. So I'll say things like, this is a good warm-up actually. I'll say colours, and I'll throw the ball to the first student and they say blue. And they throw the ball to another student, red. And they keep throwing it to each other until they run out. And then I might say fruit, and they say, oh, orange, mango. And they're practicing language, but at the same time, they're focused. They're really focusing on the ball. And it's don't have a ball that bounces, because it will go under a table. This one does not bounce, so it's not dangerous. Colouring, that's really fine motor skills develop. Don't colour outside the line. Cutting out, completely different type of mechanics in cutting and moving, moving your scissors carefully. Sticking stickers, those books with stickers. I find it difficult to stick a sticker. Because it's really tricky to control your fingers. Any kinds of arts and crafts. And movement games as well. This is motor skills. I'm a big, I'm a little, big, little, clap, clap, clap. This is coordinating your body as well. So before we can write, we need to get used to the shapes. And I use lots of different things for children to get used to shapes. I've just got one of them here now because I didn't make any spaghetti. I use all these are pipe cleaners. Marcella's asking with a big group, move fast, get them all up, get them moving. If they are a little bit older, you can make them into smaller groups. But it's, if I have a larger class for this kind of game, I will play it quite quickly and people pay attention. Okay, so this is a pipe cleaner. It's specially made. And that's why sometimes I use spaghetti. Sometimes I use the what's it called, plasticine, or whatever you call it in Brazil. So I ask the students, I say they get one each. They can choose their color. They can have a sparkly one or a dark one. and I say, make an A. Or I might do it phonically, depending if you're teaching phonically or alphabetically. Ah, can you make ah? So the children, first of all, I get them to make the letters. Then I might say, okay, work with your partner. Can you write the word me? Can you write the word at? Work in threes. Can you write dog? And they like do. But what this is doing is it is helping them to internalize through making the shapes of the letters. It's helping them to internalize the alphabet. And you're very lucky because your students are also learning the Roman alphabet anyway. I've taught in Greece, I've taught in Hong Kong, so they're learning two alphabets, and it's not a problem. I don't wish to brag, but when I was teaching my pre-primary in Greece, and they have the Greek alphabet, they learned the English alphabet in 2 weeks because they were doing all these activities with them and having lots of fun. So thinking about the shapes of things, there are nice activities where you draw and write. So you're concentrating those motor skills on the shape of the egg, the bowl, the onion, and then you write the word as well. So there's a lot of lovely activities to get them visualizing what's the shape, what's the word, what are the letters, and practicing. So it's important that young children recognize the shapes of the letters. So there's lots of activities you can do to just get them run and find an A. Can you see an A in this word? Getting them to do that recognition. But also not teaching reading and writing separately from listening and speaking, because it's language. I get a bit worried when I see people's timetables and the children do on Monday they do reading, on Tuesday they do writing. It's all linked beautifully together. So getting them to understand that, and this is why saying the words phonically is very, very useful. To say, can you make a b? Can you write bag? Really getting them linking those sounds with the letters. So as I say, doing it phonically. And there's a lot of help with that in the course books. And then recognizing words. Can you recognize these words yourself? If you see the word, what's that word? Can you recognize the difference between bag and bat, for example? And making that link between what they hear and what they see with words. So like the example I just gave you. And just lots and lots of practice in lots of different ways. So here are a few activities that practice this. So I said recognizing words. Word snakes are a great activity. So in the middle of this image, you see lots of words, and you can make these yourselves. So any words the students have learned in a previous lesson, can they isolate them? Can they see where one word ends and another begins? So that's quite a nice activity to do. And so this is a great activity because there's so much happening here. They have to complete the pictures, they have to draw around. Remember, fine motor skills, drawing around those pictures. Then they have to find the words, isolate the words, and then match the word to the picture. Isn't that fabulous? And then you could go on to do something like a picture dictation and say, the chair is blue. You can move it on as well. So lots of lovely things happening here. And the children think they're playing a game. Excuse me. They're having fun, they're drawing. lots of lovely things to do there. It is a lovely activity, isn't it? And it's deceptive, Rosendo, because it looks very simple, but so much is happening and their little brains are having to work in different directions. So exposing them to written words is important. They have to see words. They have to see as many words. So having posters around, letting them see the words in the books, making them look at these words and get used to them, and just let them make connections. No pressure. You know, there might be some words, you put some different words on the walls at the beginning of a lesson. What do they see? What's that word? Can they see a picture of that word? Just make it fun. So things like recognizing initial letters, recognizing sounds in words, and the size of words, the shape of words. What's that word? How big is that? Oh, is it a long word? Is it a small word? Is it a fat word? All these lovely things. So it's crucial that all words are connected, that they're not isolated, floating around. So connect the word to what you hear. So always teaching the written word with the spoken word, so they make that connection. And what they can say. So when you teach a word, not just read it, say it. Hear it, say it. Hear it in your head. Hearing words in your head is actually quite magical. When we read, we hear what we're reading in our heads. Just try it. Just read in silence something. You hear it, don't you? It's really important for reading to have that ability to make those words. If you don't, reading is going to be hard. So connecting words and understanding what they are is important. So for example, what's really nice is students start recognizing letters and words everywhere. And what's really lovely, I was teaching this pre-primary class, and I told you in Greece, I introduced the alphabet and the children learned it quite quickly. And one of the children, her mum was one of my teachers. And she had left, she hadn't started teaching her son because he was the youngest in the class. And he suddenly started doing this all the time in his spaghetti. He'd go, Mum, I see look, there's a, and he would see the letters and he would go, oh, look, I'm a I'm a t. And it just became real fun. And you can do this in class. You know, can you make a t? Can you make a s? Can you make that shape? So students linking everything is very, very holistic. They're linking it with their own bodies, with their own movements, etc. So we're coming towards the end of this and we're going to play another game. And this is one of my favorite games. Before we start, the name of the game is Clever Parrot. Now, why are parrots clever? What do you know about parrots? Why are they clever? What can parrots do that other animals can't? Yes, they repeat. But that just repeating is not very clever if you just repeat something. It's really important for this game to be meaningful. So this is in this game, and you can play it with flashcards as well. I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to show you a picture of an animal, and I'm going to show you a word with an animal written on it. If it's the same, you repeat. So if it says parrot and you see a parrot, you say parrot. If it's different, if it's a picture of a parrot and you see the word dog, you say Okay, let's play this game together. So if it's the same, you say it. If it's different, you say So again, I'm trusting you to play the game with me. Ready? Cat. uh-uh, uh-uh. Frog. Uh-uh, uh-uh. Kangaroo. So I'll just go back a bit. I hope you like that game. You can play it pre-reading by just saying the word and showing the picture. But here at this stage, they're reading as well. It's a very simple activity. Say you can do it with flashcards. The children can do different things, but I do get them to say the word. And if it's wrong, they can do something else. Or you can get them to jump. If it's right, they jump to the right. If it's wrong, they jump to the left. Anyway, little game for you. So how do we get them reading and writing outside the classroom as well? If you can, having class libraries with beautiful books, storybooks like the Rainbow Fish, using readers as they get older. Encouraging their parents to read stories with them, and just to read. It might be worth giving this parents some hints of how to do it, but that's a really lovely thing that they could do at home. Different online activities they could do. I'm saying the British Council have some really lovely stories online in the learning, what's it called, Teach Kids website. Give them homework of reading, like in the holiday, and getting them maybe writing a little diary to practice writing, keeping a dictionary, a personal dictionary. Lots of nice activities that they can do just to really encourage it and to make it fun, make it part of the everyday. Yeah, Rosenda, you can play that game in any way you like. There's lots of variety. There's no rules in this. You know, you choose how you want to play it. So the road to literacy. Learners have to relate in their heads what is written. They have to hear it, they have to understand it, they have to be able to say it. They need lots of opportunities to process the sound of English. So they need to hear a lot of English. And they need to link that with how the words look. That's very important. And they need that motivation. They need the fun of it. They need the nice stories. They need the nice games. They need the pictures. And they will learn really quickly if you create that right environment, that lovely language-rich environment. So, can you read this? Can you say this? This is my blog. And on my blog, there are lots of activities for primary and for teenagers. And I'm also on Facebook. And I'm also going to join you on the Cambridge Brazil Instagram page as soon as I can, as soon as I get onto Instagram. So I think it's time for questions.
Thank you so much, Olha. Wonderful ideas, many that I haven't heard of, and I'm sure teachers haven't too. Actually, let's give teachers some time to send you questions. And from your experience, what would you say that are the biggest challenges when teaching kids on how to read and write? From your experience, what do you think?
Well, I hate to say it, I don't think if you create the right environment and you don't put too much pressure on them, I think the biggest problem is if children are kind of being forced to do lots of writing and it's boring and it's not, you know, the most important thing is to go step by step. That's why I say you lay the foundations, you do it gradually. So where it goes wrong is if you are teaching reading and writing without the listening and speaking. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is you need to make sure that it's very holistic, you know, that and also that it's just not boring. I hate to say that, but you know, that's the biggest challenge to children learning, is being bored, which is a shame.
Right.
Thank you, Gabriella. I've enjoyed talking to myself. I can't see any questions. I mean, you could always contact me. Oh,
Sure, definitely.
You could
You'll
contact
see
me on.
lots of positive comments in
I
the
am.
chat.
I don't think I've ever been told I had an adorable. We had an adorable meeting, but that's very sweet. When you're talking about primary, it's just there's so many fun things you can do. It's very important.
Mhm.
I didn't cover everything, but I just wanted to share a few nice
Of
ideas with
course.
you.
Yeah, 1 hour webinar, right? Tell us, Olha, is this your favorite age group to teach?
Oh, when I'm teaching primary, they're my favorite. But when I'm teaching teenagers, they're my favorite. I
Great.
think I'm very lucky because I've been teaching for such a long time and training now for such a long time that I've had the experience of both. But this, yeah, I suppose to be honest, I do love primary. I love them. Teenagers, I'm fascinated with, but
Mhm.
primary, I absolutely love. That's very true.
Great. All right, so I still don't see any questions
That's
here.
I've silenced them.
Yes, of course, they are still, thinking about digesting everything that they have listened to. And in the chat now, our Maria Julia is going to place, yes, the link to the feedback form. And from the link, you can download your certificate. Olha, we would like to thank you so much for this lesson. I'm sure teachers will take ideas to their classrooms. It was a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you. And I forgot to say thank you, Katia. Thank you, Marju, for everything that you do behind the scenes, because you give the teachers in Brazil so many of these wonderful webinars, and I know it's a lot of work. So bravo to you and your team.
Thank you very much. So tomorrow we have one more webinar at 3. So stay tuned. We thank you very much for your participation.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.